Okay. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for our introduction to micro-internship session hosted by Parker Dewey. So, as some of you may have learned, Lark has partnered with Parker Dewey recently to expand access to micro-internships. So basically, these are short paid project-based experiences that connect employers with talented students across our 19 community colleges. These projects do give employers flexible, low-lift ways to get support on real business needs while providing the students with meaningful work and real-world experiences to fill up their resumes and transition into the workforce. So today's session will provide a practical overview of how micro-internships work and how employers can get started. I'll go ahead and hand it off to Jeffrey Moss. He is the founder and CEO of Parker Dewey to share more about how to get started.
Thanks so much. It's great to be here. Obviously, we're huge fans of Lark and the incredible initiatives being driven by you and your colleagues. So thank you. A couple of quick housekeeping notes. First, we will be recording this and sending around the slides and the recording afterwards later this week. I know that question always comes up. Second, as I was saying before we get started, please feel free to use the chat as we go through. If you have questions, comments, thoughts, whatever, I'll try to keep an eye on the other screen on the right as we go through the presentation to address any questions that come up. And also, again, hitting the agenda, we'll leave some time for Q&A at the end. So today we're going to really give a quick overview of what's going on out there and some of the industry dynamics. We'll talk about what a micro-internship is, just for people who haven't heard of the term before, give a quick bit of background. We'll then go through what I think is the most interesting part of the presentation, which are actionable strategies organizations can use right now. Doesn't matter if you're a big company or small company, doesn't matter if your campus recruiting is largely wrapped up for the year, or if you're just beginning, or if you're on campus this year or not. We'll talk about various ways employers are using these micro-internships as a core part of what they're already doing with the 19 Lark schools, or a way to start to get to know them. And as I said, we'll go into some actionable strategies. So for employers here, again, none of these things are going to be surprising for you. Ton of challenges in the early career landscape. We are seeing companies continue to struggle with increasing costs. According to the National Association of Colleges Employers, the average cost per hire is north of $6,000 and continues to increase. But what's been really interesting to me is even with that increase in cost, we're seeing about 50% of college students leaving that first job within the first year. Second big challenge is, how do we keep candidates engaged throughout the process? So think about all of the times that you're on campus, you're having students sign up using the QR code, or you're meeting amazing students through info sessions or professor introductions or otherwise. But as we know from Mary Scott's research, over 50% of them are blocking emails. They are not even accepting emails from recruiters. It's shocking to me. But what we're hearing from the students is it's often because, one, they feel overwhelmed by the volume of emails, and two, a lot of those emails are providing them things that they don't necessarily want. They don't want to go to another info session. They don't want to sit through another Zoom webinar or spend time hearing the same things they're hearing from everyone else. That's not how they want to be recruited this year. The third thing is the application avalanche. Over the past few years, we've seen over 180% increase in applications. But what I find, again, most interesting is companies are frustrated with the misalignment. This is largely because of the one-click job applications and automated tools that students are click, click, click applying to everything. And now campus recruiting teams are struggling trying to filter through thousands of resumes and guessing who's the right person. Not just who actually has the skills they're looking for, but who's actually interested in the role. And then the last thing we're hearing is just attacks on early career programs. I mean, we can look at the stat about north of 80% of hiring managers being frustrated with their new hires, but you can see all of the articles and press out there. people questioning whether AI is going to replace early career roles, companies cutting budget in campus recruiting or talent acquisition, wondering how much they need, visiting fewer schools, et cetera, et cetera. Early career is under attack, but we know how valuable it is. This is where I think Parker Dewey has stepped in. So we are not a newfangled organization. We've been around about 10 years, and we are very, very focused on helping companies improve their campus recruiting efforts, not replace what they're doing. It's not about replacing the great relationships you're building with Lark. It's not about replacing early career programs or canceling internships or anything else. It's about enhancing what you're doing to get the best outcomes. And the way we do it are through these things called micro-internships. And we'll talk more about them in a second. Employers are using this platform, really, as I alluded to before, throughout the entire process, whether it's before campus visits to drive the awareness and interest from candidates who may not be aware of your brand, candidates who can't participate in traditional events or might not be thinking about coming to your info session, after those events to keep students warm, to assess skills and interest for candidates that are already engaged. And as I said, if you can't be on campus this year or visit all 19 of the Lark campuses, what a great way to still engage those students and start to determine which schools you should be spending more time with. So what are micro-internships? Micro-internships are short-term paid professional projects that companies give to college students and recent grads as a way to sort of engage and assess them. As one of the students described it, it was less creepy when she did it this way versus a 50-something married guy. Think about a micro-internship like a job date, whereas the summer internship is like getting engaged. The full-time role is getting married. So again, these are very, very short-term projects that are aligned to entry-level roles and give you insights into their skills. And we'll share some very specific examples of what they can be. What I always like to highlight, though, is these are predictive. These short-term projects give you insights on the skills specifically related to those roles, not just the technical skills like can someone use Excel or can they code in Python, but also core skills like problem solving, communication, coachability, attention to detail. These micro-internships are done independently. You don't have to share access to confidential data or access to systems or spend a whole bunch of time onboarding or training or handholding. They're flexible. They can be done any time of year, and they're really aligned to your needs, irrespective of department, industry, or anything else. And there's no burden for you. They're easy to offer. Micro interns are not your employees. They're not your contractors. There's no temp to perm or conversion fee, which makes it easy. So while we talk about these as individual projects, in reality, while these students are completing the projects, you're getting access to a ton of great data. Data tied to geography, data tied to performance, data tied to cost per hire or effectiveness of your programs. Now, as opposed to it being hypothetical, I'll show you the way that Parker Dewey works with companies to essentially take their full-time roles and create the micro-internships that power all of this. So on the left on the screen now, you can see a job description for an entry-level data marketer role that a company shared. I removed all of the fluff about we're looking for sort of a strong culture or where the location is or any of the other boilerplate and focused on the core of the job description. Again, you'll notice a few things jump out. You'll notice gathering and analyzing data or data-driven insights or competitor analysis. What we did is use that job description to create a micro-internship. Again, back to that criteria I mentioned before. Short. It's a project that a student can complete in 10, 15, 20 hours. This micro-internship for the competitive campaign analysis doesn't require the student to use any data provided by that company or access any of their systems. This is something a student can do over 10, 15, 20 hours independently without needing handholding, without access to systems. It's a project that is also predictive because while the student is doing this project, employers are getting insights on their skills. As I mentioned, they're getting technical skill analysis like data analytics or their ability to do market research, but also insights on those other core skills, the intellectual curiosity of the student or the professionalism. And this is, again, designed to be easy. All employers need to do is share a job description for an existing role or internship, review the candidates who apply. And again, it takes typically about 15 or 20 minutes in total to do that, to select which micro interns you want. We typically suggest hosting a brief kickoff call with those students that you select. I typically do it over Zoom. I find it's a really great way to confirm everyone is aligned on what the project is, to answer any questions, but it's also a great way to start to build that authentic relationship with the student. And then once the students submit the work, you get to review it. And again, we find reviewing the work for about 5 or 10 students tends to take about an hour in total. Again, you're spending 5 or 10 minutes reviewing the deliverable, and I'll show you some examples of deliverables as we go through, but it's pretty quick. What we also see some companies do is they may engage hiring managers in the process. So instead of you, quote unquote, managing the micro intern and hosting the kickoff call, let's have a leader from the sales department do it for a sales project, or maybe a member of an ERG. For instance, if you have a community college employee resource group at your company, what a great opportunity to have them work with the micro intern from the LARC program. Could be new professionals. Again, what a great way for someone who may have just joined your company a year or two ago to start to feel almost like a manager. Makes them feel good. Plus, you can start to see the skills of the existing employees. What we also see some companies do is a check-in along the way at a midpoint. Again, it's a great way to make sure everything is on direction, but it's also a great way to continue to build that relationship with someone who you may want to hire. And then finally, we'll see some companies ask a student to do a presentation of a final deliverable. So for instance, on a sales micro internship that was done, the final step of it was the student was asked to do a 15-minute presentation to the sales team, giving a pitch. Again, the student loved it because it was a great experience, but the sales team thought it was amazing. Again, it gave them a preview of the student's skills before bringing them on, and in a way you can't get from an interview. So what we'll do now is we're going to talk about a few examples of how employers are using this in the ways I outlined before, really throughout their campus recruiting process. We'll talk about the challenges they faced and how they were able to address them using this approach. The first example is HCA. It's a global healthcare organization, hospital system, and the like. They had a ton of difficulty recruiting both for allied health professionals, think radiology technician or nurse practitioner. But what they were also having difficulty for were those quote unquote non-obvious roles in marketing or finance or operations that college students may not have been thinking about the healthcare industry. And as a result, they were seeing really, really low participation when they were on campus. They were actually planning to skip this year, in their words. So what they wound up doing instead was they posted micro internships, both for those allied health roles, but also for those other roles, again, the marketing or tech or whatnot. They were posting them before visiting campus as kind of a, again, their words, a last-ditch effort. What they found was the micro internships drew massive level of interest from students. It allowed students to almost get a preview of what they were going to be doing in the role. It made them want to come to the info session. It made them want to learn about the plethora of opportunities because it distinguished HCA from other organizations. Again, over 80% of the students showed up were not even thinking about HCA beforehand. So again, when they announced that they'd be visiting a school, one of the things they said is, in addition, we're going to be talking about micro internship opportunities at HCA when we're there, but you must attend to have the opportunity to participate. Again, it was this incredible opportunity. The other thing they started doing was using it to build a list before they were on campus that students would apply to their micro internships. They might pick some large students, which obviously goes really well, but they couldn't necessarily pick everyone. But when they're on campus later in the year, they already had this pool of interested, qualified candidates that they could invite personally. The second organization, again, we hear this all the time. They're showing up on campus and getting the resumes and meeting the students, but they were seeing a massive drop off afterwards. And that was really because of a couple of things. First of all, they were finding that, as I alluded to before, students were blocking emails. The second thing they found is they would get a lot of first and second year students who would show up to the career fair or the info session, but they were only offering internships to juniors and full-time roles for seniors. So these were lost candidates, candidates who were interested enough to come by, who were excited, but it was tough to keep engaged until they were juniors. And often when they were juniors, they lost that relationship. So again, instead of following up saying, please apply to our full-time role, or just blasting emails with additional info, or in the case of first or second year students, maybe missing them completely or sending emails that just weren't relevant because they weren't juniors or seniors yet, they were offering students opportunities to work on these micro internships. Again, great way to keep the first and second year students warm, and great way to keep the juniors and seniors engaged and excited and interested until this organization was ready to formally begin its recruiting process. They saw a 3x increase in email engagement because they were promoting these micro internships, but they also saw a massive improvement in offer to hire, because the students felt like when they were working on the projects, it wasn't just building a relationship with the campus recruiting team where they felt like they were being, again, in their words, marketed to, but they were working on real projects with real hiring managers, again, building those authentic relationships that led to better conversion. The third example, again, talks about the application avalanche. Again, 182% more applications over the past several years, with a large percentage of those students having low interest in actually working at those organizations. So this organization was actively hiring for HR roles. And in this case, they had a different issue. They were, again, having applicants with misalignment or lack of interest, but they were also finding they were getting applicants with 3.9 GPAs with the perfect major, but ultimately when it came to hiring them, they just didn't have the right skills and they didn't find it out until later. So what this organization did is, again, they used micro internships aligned to their entry-level HR roles. One of the students they selected submitted final work product, as you can see on the left. The micro internship was, we want to improve our best practice, or we want to improve our new hire onboarding. We want someone to research best practices and prepare a summary. This was the cover page of the presentation, the executive summary that was requested. There's some good info in here, and sorry, it's a little small, but there's some typos and grammatical errors and other things. This was a student, again, with a 3.9 GPA studying HR. They selected multiple students, though. One of the other students they selected had a lower GPA. She was, I believe, a sociology major, though it could have been another area of humanities. Slightly lower GPA, again, and not at focus school. This was the executive summary from her presentation. Not only are there no typos or grammatical errors, look at the way she presented. Look at the alignment of how a hiring manager wants to look at info, the empathy that she was able to show by putting herself in the mind of a hiring manager. In their words, this was someone who they wouldn't have even interviewed based upon the resume, but there was something intriguing when she applied. And through this job date, they were able to learn so much more about her. Less time and effort than the interview or the resume flip, but more insights, again, on those skills. Ultimately, this leads to faster hiring and better retention. The last example is something, again, I think we're all feeling right now. massive budget cuts in early career recruiting, more pressure on hiring for core skills or durable skills, questions around AI, etc. This company was trying to figure out how to get the most out of what was a very limited budget, but was also trying to figure out how to continue to demonstrate internally the value of their work and the value of their early career program. Again, they did the same thing. They reallocated some of their campus recruiting budget, not from not visiting schools, they still wanted to, even though they weren't able to go to quite as many, but they stopped spending some of the money that they were otherwise spending on job boards and blasting emails and used it to fund these micro internships for the students. One of the things they found were metrics that showed the incredible effectiveness of this. They were able to use it to deepen the relationships they had with those existing schools in some of the ways I was talking about before, but also to identify new partner universities, schools they may not have recruited from historically. And they were able to showcase these data to the CHRO, to the CFO and COO in a way that not only allowed them to defend their budget and their effort, but to actually drive an increase in the following year. And this all comes down to the impact. The impact is real. We're seeing more students have these opportunities. It's leveling the playing field, but we're also finding it lowers cost per hire on average 40 to 80%. In addition, when the students are getting hired for full-time roles, we're seeing 98% first-year retention. So what is the LARC Micro-Internship Program? This is a program we're excited to collaborate with LARC on that allows you to recruit students from any of the 19 LARC campuses, again, through this platform, really to enhance your outcome, to reach students that might not be applying, to get insights on the skills, or to even just get an extra set of hands on a small project and to get a competitive advantage. And again, this exists because LARC is really trying to support both the students and the employer partners. Again, creating those pathways from LARC to great careers. Again, and this is access to everything, not just the micro internships and the projects, but all of the data, all of the insights to help you, again, support your existing campus recruiting efforts. So the question is always, how do we get started? Well, it's simple. You can use the link and I'll try to copy it and put it in the chat if I can. Let me see if I can be good about, here we go. I'll put the link in the chat or you can use the QR code. And my suggestion is send us a job description. You're not on the hook for anything. There's no cost, there's no commitment or anything else. Send us a job spec, a job that you have difficulty filling, a job that you know you're going to need next year, but you're not necessarily ready to commit to, or something you're thinking about. We'll mock up what a micro internship would look like. We'll show you the amazing LARC students that you can engage with this. I also love to be challenged. We have an entire team here that spends 100% of their time creating these projects for companies, using the job descriptions and the best practices that we've developed over the past 10 years to create these micro internships. And again, we love to be challenged. Send us that job that you think there's no way you can create a project from. That job that is just so hard to fill. If we can't do it, we'll let you know. But again, we're pretty good at it. We've seen some incredibly difficult things on factory floors working with multi-million-dollar pieces of machinery. Now, a micro internship is not going to be operating that piece of machinery, but it might be something like creating a user's manual. We've worked with Northrop Grumman, which is literally deals with classified top secret info. The micro internships we're creating for them aren't requiring access to that info, but they're using public data. And again, any of these projects can align to what you're doing before you're going to be on campus at LARC. What a great way to keep students, get students excited. After you're on campus, after you're presenting in a class, great way to keep them engaged. And again, if you can't be there this year, what a great way to still continue to recruit them. So with that, we have about 4 minutes left. Any comments from the LARC folks or questions from the audience? Was this useful?
This was very helpful, Jeffrey. Thank you. I do have a quick question. So if an employer wants to get started, what's the level of support they get from Parker Dewey with, creating their account and continuing to post on the platform? If they're,
Yeah,
just starting out.
yeah. The We have a term internally we use. It's called Jeff proof. Everything we do needs to be Jeff proof. It needs to be easy and simple enough that I would have used it before starting Parker Dewey, which means that we are white glove service. If you send us a job description, I don't care if you're a small business or a Fortune 500, I don't care if you're a CEO or if you just started yesterday. If you send us a job description, we will have a team that will create micro internships for you. You obviously can give feedback or tweak or change. We'll do that. We can get them posted on the platform for you. We can walk through the candidates with you and show you how we would select. We can even shortlist or select for you. We do everything. Back to the earlier slide, we want this to be easy. We want this not to add to the workload. We know everyone is busy, whether they're focused on campus recruiting or just a busy professional. Everyone's busy. We want this to be a massive time savings, not a burden. Did that answer your question?
That did. Thank you.
Any other questions? I guess I did okay. So my suggestion is, again, use the QR code or the link. Seriously, send us a job spec. Even if you don't have a job spec, a couple of bullets. I could really use help doing an email campaign. I'm trying to get an understanding of what my competitors are doing. I have this massive Excel spreadsheet I need help creating formulas. Those are all great examples that can go into micro internships. Again, whether it's to get a small project done and off your plate, or whether it's tied to campus recruiting. Send us those things. We will mock up what a micro internship will look like. You give us a thumbs up, we'll put it on the platform. You're not paying anything. You can see the students who apply. If you don't see any that align to your goals, cancel it. No problem, no commitment. Really, really, really easy. I see a question in the chat. 10 students apply for a micro internship. How many historically get hired? It's up to the company. So we'll see some companies use this. So for instance, one of the companies was using this to hire, they were actively looking to hire 5 new sales professionals. They had, I don't know, 50 or 60 students apply for their micro internship. They wound up picking 10 students to do the project. So again, they were thinking 2 to 1, that for every full-time hire we're trying to make, we're going to select 2 micro interns. Great. So they selected 10 students to do the project out of the 50 or 60 who applied. That was their goal. By the way, they were looking to make 5 full-time hires. They wound up making 7. And a year and a half later, 100% of them are still there. Their cost per hire was under $1,000 is what it wound up working out to, which again, I'll put that up against any other cost per hire or conversion or retention number. Well, the other companies where I just need one. I need one student to just help me on this project I need to get off my plate. No problem. It's up to the company to decide. Did that answer your question, Karen? I guess so. You're welcome. What other questions do we have? I guess none. So I will leave it to our friends at LARC to close us out.
Thank you, Jeffrey. So as Jeffrey mentioned earlier, this presentation is being recorded, so we will follow up with an email with a recording of the presentation and a copy of the deck. When I think the Parker Dewey team for sharing their insight and expertise and the examples that were brought up of how companies can successfully incorporate a micro internship model with little time and manpower. So if you are an employer on this call and you are interested in exploring micro internships, please follow the link that was shared in the chat. If you still have follow-up questions that might come up later on, Parker Dewey is really good about following up with you pretty quickly. So there is a portion at the bottom of that form for you to fill out with your questions, and they'll get back to you pretty shortly. Otherwise, we'll wrap up here and thank you for your time. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Bye.